Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Sleep is important for memory. Sleep is important for learning. Sleep is important for detoxifying the brain. That's right, removing toxins from your brain requires deep sleep. But sleep is also important for maintaining and healing the brain. You even create new memory cells in the deepest stages of sleep. So hi, my name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. I'm also the senior scientific officer over here at Invite Health. On today's episode, we're going to discuss the various things that sleep does for your brain and approximately how much sleep you require to achieve this. And also, we will eventually talk about supplements that improve sleep. The name of the episode is Sleep is Required for Memory. Now, please subscribe to the podcast, and please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. The information on today's episode is linked in the episode description, so let's get going. Your hippocampus, it's your learning memory inbox. It's your learning and memory inbox. Now, the hippocampus, which if you look at the brain, it's kind of like in the lower part of the brain, in the middle of the brain. It's very important for learning. When you learn something new that day, you keep it in your inbox, which is your hippocampus. But it's vulnerable, and it's a short-term storage site. So when you go into sleep, at the deepest stages of sleep, you move that memory out of the hippocampus to a longer-term storage site. Otherwise, you do not remember what you learned that day. No, but a second thing happens. Learning gets jammed up. A poor night's sleep, there's a 40% drop in the ability to form new memories the next day. So it blocks learning. So in other words, if you didn't go to sleep, the hippocampus doesn't unload and shift the memories to the long-term storage sites, and it basically new memories will just bounce off of it. It gets jammed up. So to put this into context, if I was taking a test and I slept, I could ace it. And if I had a very bad night's sleep, I could fail the test miserably. So in your deepest sleep, there's these big, powerful brain waves, but they have these spectacular bursts of energy, kind of like fireworks, literally, at the tip of them. It's a very powerful electrical activity. It's known as a sleep spindle. That's what they're calling it. These energetic spindles transfer the memories from what was stored in the hippocampus that day, what you learned that day is stored in the hippocampus, to a more permanent, longer-term memory storage site that's not as vulnerable. So it's very important to get sleep to learn and to clear out the part where you're learning to receive more memories the next day. Now, it's no secret that as we grow older, I mean, I'm 67, our memory declines, and so does our ability to learn. Now, this occurs while your high-quality deep sleep, your nourishing deep sleep, your delta wave sleep, also declines. And that's not just occurring randomly at the same time. These events are related to one another. Declining sleep quality is underpinning memory loss and a lessened ability to learn. In fact, over the past several years, they've been forming a big connection between severe memory loss and even Alzheimer's disease and poor quality sleep. So what does sleep do for your memories? A whole bunch of things. It's so important for your brain. In the daytime, when you learn something, you go to sleep at night. And sleep is a cycle from REM sleep, the rapid eye movement where you're dreaming, to very deep sleep, delta wave sleep. And the sleep cycle takes about 2.5 hours on average. So during the night, if you're getting enough sleep, like 7 or 8 hours, you're going into that deep sleep multiple times. And that's very important for older people, for them to sleep a minimum of 7 hours, 7 to 8 hours. That's like a perfect level of sleep for them. So at night, when you go into these periods of deep sleep, you're consolidating your learning, you're consolidating your memories, you're shifting the memories from the hippocampus, which is a vulnerable short-term site for memories, but it's where the new memories come in. Like I said, it's your inbox, and you're shifting it over to the more permanent memory sites, which scientists don't really know exactly how that's happening yet and where they are, but they seem to be all over the place, and that's another story. So it clears the way for learning the next day also. So not only are you imprinting the memories more solidly, but you're clearing out room to learn memories the next day. But also, when you go into these periods of deep sleep, you're activating your glymphatic system. This is macroscopic. Scientists can actually observe it. It's you eliminate neurotoxic waste products, products from all that energy utilization in the daytime, etc. And that includes beta amyloid. Beta amyloid is a protein that's involved with something in the brain. They're not quite sure yet why it's needed. But if you don't clear it out at night, if you're not going into these periods of deep sleep, the glymphatic system has trouble breaking down that beta amyloid. It's kind of like a tarry, sticky substance. And it starts to form what we call oligomers, these long chains, and it becomes sticky and invasive and toxic, and it kills healthy cells. And this is a big part of the Alzheimer's process, because as the plaque builds up in the brain, if you're not detoxifying every night, it starts to kill the nerve cells. That's called a tauopathy, and that's clearly when you have major problems with Alzheimer's disease. Now, the problem with the glymphatic system is it starts to fail you with age. So you're not removing as much plaque. As the brain breaks down the plaque, it's shifted out through the spine, through the cerebral spinal fluid. They can actually see the waste product of the plaque leaving the brain and entering the bloodstream. One way to help restore glymphatic activity, detoxification of the brain, while we're touching on this, is the nutrient resveratrol, trans-resveratrol. Another way to do it is fish oils or krill oil. They're all involved with glymphatic activity, detoxifying the brain. Now, the other thing about sleep is you release nerve growth factors. These heal tissues and they give rise to new tissues. So the nerve growth factors reduce the death of your brain neurons, your nerve cells in your brain, your thinking cells. But they're also involved with neuron formation, especially one called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. A decrease in the function of the glymphatic system with detoxification and a decrease in the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor are seriously, they're real impediments to a healthy brain as we age. So brain-derived neurotrophic factor is released when you go into deep sleep, that delta wave sleep, where you're just like sitting still, you're not dreaming. It's very restorative sleep. It's very deep sleep. That's when you're detoxifying. That's when you're transferring the data you learned that day for learning. That's when you're clearing out space so you can learn more the next day. Now, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor was discovered in 1982, so not very long ago. It supports the survival of your brain neurons. It helps prevent them from dying. It helps prevent them from going through what we call apoptosis, the death of brain cells. It creates new neurons. I'll explain that in a minute. But it also creates the synaptic region between your neurons for transmission of information within your brain. So let's talk about that. Your memory and thinking cells are not connected. There's a tiny, tiny microscopic space in between them called a synaptic region. And this is important because otherwise, if you didn't have a space between brain cells, one transmission would go around in a cycle until your brain basically worked itself to death. So there's a space between the brain cells called a synapse. And to have messages transfer across it, the brain cell releases neurotransmitters, these little tiny, tiny release of a chemical for the brain. We know of about 100 of them now, like Alcar for brain energy and memory, acetylcholine for learning and memory, GABA to calm the brain down, glutamate to excite the brain, dopamine for focusing and learning, being aware of what's good for you and what's dangerous and that sense of reward, but also for movement, and so on and so forth. Norepinephrine for focusing and paying attention, serotonin to control your appetite and help prevent depression and anxiety. So the brain cell releases a tiny amount of this neurotransmitter, and it goes across the space and it hits the next neurotransmitter. With age, the synaptic regions decay, and this brain-derived neurotrophic factor that you're releasing in deep sleep creates new healthy synaptic connections, new synapses for the transmission of info in your brain. But also, it creates actual new neurons. Now, we didn't know this 10 years ago. If you had asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said, I don't know. It seems that we can't create new memory cells. Now we know young people, when they go into deep sleep at night, so obviously that's not happening on a Friday night, but when they go into deep sleep at night, they release a lot of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and they can literally create about 600 new memory cells every night. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up. By the time you're 50, you've replaced all your original memory cells. So it really does add up. But then the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor starts to slow down. So you're not taking these progenitor stromal stem cells and converting them into memory cells in the same abundance. So eventually, because every day you're losing memory cells, you're not keeping up or replacing them, and eventually there's a tipping point where now you're really starting to lose memory and focus and all those cognitive and executive skills that you need to do well as a human. So at night when you go into deep sleep, and this is again why it's so important to go through the sleep cycle a number of times, so it's very important for people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s to sleep 7 or 8 hours, so they do this continuously. So this way they have a chance to release enough brain-derived neurotrophic factor to replace missing memory cells. So the brain-derived neurotrophic factor is very important in parts of the brain that really are involved with memory, vital to memory, higher thinking and reasoning and learning, like the hippocampus, where you're storing new memories, the cerebral cortex, that's where the gray matter is damaged in Alzheimer's disease, and also the basal forebrain. So, it's just important to release this brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So here's the thing. If you are older, there is a trick to help you release more brain-derived neurotrophic factor similar to a younger person. It's if you get a very well-absorbed turmeric. Turmeric is that curry spice. It's related to ginger. It's in the ginger family. There's hundreds of plants in the ginger family. And it's a little spicier than ginger. Normally they use that for backaches and shoulder pain and arthritic knee pain, etc. But if you get a really well-absorbed turmeric that's rich in all the different ingredients in turmeric, there's many. There's like bismuth-oxycurcumin, and there's curcumin itself, and there's aromatic turmeric. There's all these different things that are great for your brain. If it's a well-absorbed turmeric, it will enter the brain, and it'll improve the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Right now, there's 5 different human clinical trials showing that when you take turmeric during the daytime, it supports your memory for about 6 hours. Your memory gets a little sharper for about 6 hours. But that night, you're releasing more brain-derived neurotrophic factor. You're creating new memory cells. So you're getting cognitive reserve now, which means there's memory cells coming out that are virginal. They've never been damaged by depression or plaques. They're very healthy. So you can, deep into old age, have good brain function, good memory functions. So it's a very important point. I know of 3 well-absorbed turmerics. I have 2 of them. There's one that they've been studying in UCLA. My problem with that one is it's a very low potency. And then there's the turmeric, where they add black pepper to it. It's called curcumin complex. We have that under our Dr. Pressman line. And then there's the biocurcumin. We have a product, biocurcumin 5-loxin. So it's a great product for the brain. I actually take 2 a day, not for arthritis. I take it for my brain health. So now, what about nutrients for sleep? And of course, there's a lot of tricks for a better night's sleep. Don't look at a lot of blue light late in the night, like on your cell phone or on your computer or on your TV set right before you go to sleep, because blue light inhibits the release of melatonin by the brain. When you're going to sleep at night, there's a gland in the middle of your brain, kind of a small gland called the pineal gland, and when you're going to sleep at night, it releases melatonin. When it starts to get dark, that triggers the start of the release of melatonin. It sets you up for sleep. Melatonin does a lot more than that. It's involved with building bone, controlling your body temperature, controlling your blood pressure at night. It's involved with bringing your immune system together for more appropriate activity against infections, etc. More effective treatment of an infection by your immune system. Melatonin does a lot of things, but the well-known function of melatonin is for sleep. So you can actually take melatonin. I tell older people who are having a lot of symptoms and they're having trouble sleeping, try some melatonin. Melatonin is great for the following. It's great for restoring immune system function and coordinating the effects of the immune system. It's great for building bone. It's great for controlling nighttime blood pressure and body temperature. If your temperature doesn't drop a couple of points at night, you're not going to be able to sleep, which is a good reason to keep your window open in the spring and fall, right? Melatonin is needed to repair the digestive tract, like it's one of the supplements you could give to people with GERD, persistent heartburn, chronic heartburn. It helps them out a great deal. They're finding new things about melatonin all the time. When you release enough melatonin at night, it's easier to handle pain the next day. So there's a lot of things about melatonin that are being discovered in the past couple of years, especially because of this COVID-19, because melatonin is so important to your immune cells that they can actually release melatonin. We thought at one time just that pineal gland in the brain could release melatonin to set you up for sleep. We now know that your digestive tract can express melatonin for digestive reasons, and your immune cells can release melatonin for immune system needs. So it's a very important hormone. But if you take it about a half an hour before bed with minimal water, because you don't want to have to get up to go to the bathroom, it really improves how deeply you sleep, how long you sleep, and how quickly you fall asleep. I don't need it. I put my head on the pillow. I'm asleep in minutes. A second thing, besides the blue light issue, don't exercise right before bed. Exercise much earlier. Those are just two simple tips to help you sleep better. CBD can be helpful, cannabidiol. It comes from hemp, and it doesn't get you high at all. It's not like marijuana. What it does, it affects CB1 receptor sites in the brain that calm you down. You release the bliss molecule called anandamide. That's an old Sanskrit word, and it helps you sleep. It clears out all the noise in your brain. So melatonin, hemp with CBD. Tart cherry is very interesting. Tart cherry, a lot of studies, the Montmorency tart cherry skin was studied a number of times at Texas A&M for their NCAA athletes, like their football team, etc. And they find that it improves circulation to muscles during physical activity, so you get a higher level of performance, and there's a lowered risk of having stiff muscles and muscle cramps, etc. after the exercise. Research also shows that it helps improve high blood pressure in people with elevated blood pressure, and that it supplies more blood to the brain. But the other thing from about 4 or 5 studies at this point, and another one just came out about a week ago, tart cherry, if you get enough of it, and we're talking the skin, there's no sugar problem there. It's loaded with anthocyanins that are good for your circulation and good for your eyes and good for your brain and good for your skin. The anthocyanins in the tart cherry, for some reason, if you have enough of them in the daytime, even though they're helping you exercise and they're helping you think better in the daytime, at nighttime they help you sleep better. And they think it's tied into the release of melatonin. They're not quite sure. Now, another supplement that's very helpful for sleep is L-theanine. L-theanine is a more rare amino acid. It comes from the tea plant. And like when you get a cup of tea, you get a tiny bit of melatonin, so that's one of the reasons why tea is so soothing. It's kind of like a moment of zen. But if you take a little bit extra melatonin at bedtime, it just clears all the noise and junk out of your brain, and you could sleep a lot deeper and a lot longer. I use that as a trick if I wake up at 3 in the morning. My problem is if I get a half an hour of sleep, I can go a whole day after that. That's kind of a problem, because if I go to bed at 11 and I wake up at 3, I'm very busy the next day with radio programs and podcasts and writing, etc., and talking to clients. So I need my sleep. I need the 7 or 8 hours. So I go into my bathroom and I take 2 melatonin, 100 milligrams. I'm telling you, within about 5 or 10 minutes, I'm back asleep. I get a very restful sleep, and there's no hangover. I have no issue at all with waking up the next day. So if you're having trouble getting to sleep at night, you're having some kind of insomnia problem, do the melatonin. But if it's a situation where you're waking up prematurely, you're waking up at 3 o'clock instead of 6 or 7 o'clock, then when you wake up, take 2 or even 3 L-theanine and you will thank me. Magnesium can also be helpful with sleep. Magnesium's a mineral. It does so many things in the human body. For instance, in the daytime, you need magnesium for energy, but at nighttime, you need magnesium to release melatonin. So you could take magnesium with your dinner. It's good for your bones. It's good for your blood sugar control. It's good for your heart and your blood pressure. It's good for so many things. And later on, when it's time to release melatonin, you'll be more effective and efficient at doing it. Magnesium's an amazing mineral. Okay, thank you for tuning into our Invite Health podcast. You can find all of our episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Please subscribe. Please leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Invite Health. I hope to see you another time on another episode, and thank you so much for listening. Jerry Hickey signing off. Have a good day.